Regional Ambassador Lior Skaler. He's been a President's Cup winner. He's a Regional Ambassador, part of the CEO Advisory Council. He's also been voted top 50 MLM mentors by businessforhome.org. Also, he has his business growing in over 29 countries around the world. So without further ado, gentlemen, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Kev. I know we'll have my partner today here, Lior. Do we have you on the line?
I do. Can you hear me, Sean?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, my friend. So I know it's a fun subject we're tackling tonight. I don't know about you, Lior, but I remember the first time I heard this webinar by our two millionaires, Renee and Reza. You know, I was laughing half the time because we're going to be going through a lot of things that we hear on a regular basis when we're doing our tour. So I'm looking forward to have a lot of fun tonight.
Absolutely, Sean. It's been a while since actually we've been on a training call together, so it's great to be training with you tonight again. And actually, this is one of my favorite subjects. I love handling objections, and some people might be thinking, well, that's one of the things that they dislike most about the business is that they have to handle objections. Well, you know, if you want to go to the first slide there, Sean, you know, the truth about handling objections is that objections are just unanswered questions, and the great thing about objections is that once you learn how to handle them properly, you're going to start to love them just as much as I love them, because you're going to know how to handle them, and so it doesn't matter what objection somebody has, you already have the answer for it, and that's what we're going to be helping everybody with today. So again, objections are just unanswered questions, and they're okay. Objections are good. Objections are normal. Objections are just, you know, more information that people need in order to make a decision. And so you should expect objections, and you should be prepared for them. And hopefully today we can prepare you as much as we can so that objections don't have to stop you anymore. You know, objections are usually fear-based. It's just due to a lack of knowledge. And what I always like to say is that the only reason why somebody wouldn't join this opportunity is because they don't understand it, or because they have some questions that are unanswered. And so just by handling people's objections and just by answering them, they are ready to go to get started and to see what this opportunity can do for them. So when you're handling objections, be pleasantly persistent to get past their no. Because it's not a no, it's just a no until I get my questions answered, and it's just a no until I feel comfortable with the business. And so you can get them comfortable and you can get them ready to go. Just be persistent in answering their questions, and try not to talk a lot. So try to talk as little as you can, because the more you say, the more objections you actually give them. And so the goal is not to give them more objections to ask you or more questions to ask you. The goal is just to make sure that whatever questions they have get answered so that they understand how the business works and they feel comfortable in getting started right away. Would you agree with that, Sean? Do you have anything else to add?
You know what? You hit the nail on the head there, Leo. You know, the vast majority of people that come and see our business, they come and see our tour, they already like everything that they understand. And when it comes to objections, just our unanswered questions, you know, it's exactly that. When we talk about talking less and listening more, you know, sometimes you might have to get those questions out of them to actually answer them. But you know what? It's exactly that. Pleasantly, persistently getting past that no, you know, listening so you get those little subtle clues so you can answer the questions that they haven't yet asked.
Absolutely. And so no is something that you're going to get, and no is something that you should expect to get, because, you know, 60% of consumers actually say no 4 times before they make a purchase. All right, so no 4 times. Now, you can actually decrease the amount of times that somebody's gonna say no, or the amount of times that you have to meet with somebody after they see a tour, just by being able to handle their objections properly. And so some people actually fail at it because they give up too soon. They don't make sure that the prospect has had all of their questions answered. And so a question that I like to ask the prospect after they see a tour is, do you have any questions? And then once they've asked me all their questions, I ask them, do you have any more questions? Or even, do you have any objections? Or do you have any concerns? Because sometimes they might have a concern and objection, and they might not even feel comfortable telling you their concern. But if you ask them, they will let you know what it is, and then you can answer it and make them feel comfortable. And once they're comfortable, it's not going to be on their mind anymore. And so, you know, somebody that's really good with this is one of our GWT millionaires and regional ambassadors, Renee Liao. If you ever have a chance to sit down with Renee and just hear how he answers people's questions after the tour, sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's 40 minutes, sometimes it's an hour. You know, he's very persistent at making sure that people get all of their questions out, all of their concerns out, and he gives them whatever information that they need in order to make an educated decision. Because he knows, as well as Sean and I know, that consumers want to buy. They just don't want to be sold. And so if you keep that in your mind, that you're sitting across from somebody who wants to do this, who wants to be able to make a difference in their life, they just don't want to be sold on it. So all you have to do is just be somebody who can answer their questions and make them feel comfortable. Anything to add to that, Sean?
You know, again, I give it up too soon. I can tell you one thing, and I see this very often in Montreal, where we have the #1 income earner. He's down there, a national ambassador, Lior Skaler. He's down there every week, and he will spend as much time as it takes to, you know, answer any questions, overcome the objections. He'll spend that time listening to see what questions need to be asked to actually answer the questions from the prospect over there, and he's just somebody that'll never give up. You know what, he's constantly making sure they have all their questions answered, they overcome all their objections, you know, and sometimes you get them very comfortable to the point where they will, you know, give out all the information that needs to be answered at the same time. And you can see over here, as a big and sturdy man as Reza is, he shows gentle persistence. That's the key over here when it comes to handling objections. This is truly part of the closing process. You don't want to come across as that salesman or saleswoman type of person, you know. So that slow, gentle persistence, that understanding, which we'll cover a little bit later on here. This is exactly what you got to do to get past the no's.
Absolutely. Now, there are 3 Ds to objection handling. And the 3 Ds of objection handling are determination, dialogue, and delivery. So the first thing that you need to remember is to be determined. Because as soon as you give up, as soon as you start to say to yourself, you know, maybe I don't know all the answers, so I should just try to end this dialogue as quickly as I can, because I know that sometimes, you know, objection handling might get a little scary if you're a little bit afraid that you don't have all of the answers. And so it's okay not to have all of the answers. It's okay to say, you know what, that's a great question. I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to get you the answer as quickly as I can. Now, it's very important that you write down the question that they asked you, because as soon as you write down their question, what that shows them is that you actually care to get them the answer. And as we know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so writing down whatever question you don't know and getting back to them is key. So be determined and be courageous with the fact that it's okay that you don't know all of the answers, and engage in a dialogue with them. So instead of the 6 o'clock news where it's question, answer, just have a conversation with them about whatever they're concerned about, or whatever questions they have. Just have a conversation about it. And remember, delivery is very key. So a lot of times I could say something and somebody else could say something, and what we said is the same thing, but we delivered it in a completely different way, and the prospect may relate to I said better than what the other person said, or even what the other person said better than I said, just because of the delivery. So a lot of times it's not even about what you say, it's about how you deliver it. And so those are 3 things to keep in mind when you're speaking to prospects: is determination, dialogue, and delivery.
Exactly. You know what? We'll cover these one by one as we go through. We'll go through some scripts at the same time here. So folks, make sure you wrote down these 3 Ds of objection handling, the determination, you know, the mindset to have, the dialogue on how to create that dialogue process going. And of course, most importantly is the delivery, and we'll show you towards the end over here.
Now, there's also the 3 E's. So we went through the 3 D's. Now we got the 3 E's in objection handling, and that's energy, enthusiasm, and excitement. And I mean, there's really not a lot that's more important than energy, enthusiasm, and excitement, because if the prospect sees that you're kind of afraid to answer their questions, or they see that you're nervous, or you're second guessing, or you're thinking too much about them, you know, they're going to get a little bit concerned that, you know, maybe you're not the best person for them to work with. So even if you don't know the answer, or even if you're trying to think of the answer, having a lot of energy and enthusiasm and excitement will show them that, first of all, it's okay when they get started if they don't have the answer, okay, and that you're excited about the business and you don't even need to have all the answers. And that's very powerful. It's powerful to be excited about something even when you don't have all the answers. So what that shows them is, well, they don't need to have all the answers because it's an exciting business, and because you don't need to have all the answers in order to be able to do the business and in order to be able to make a difference in your life. So these 3 things are very, very important.
Absolutely. And you know what, these 3 things, not only in objection handling, but you folks will see that throughout the entire business process with Global Wall Trade, energy, enthusiasm, and excitement are key here. You know, some of our prospects, they have their day in, day out that they've been doing, their 9 to 5. So even in handling the objection, having that energy, that big smile, the enthusiasm, the excitement, whether you have all the answers or not, you can write down the questions a little bit later. These are absolutely key in showing how fun this business is at the same time whilst you're handling the objections.
So again, just to go back to determination, because it's very important not to give up, and it's very important to keep determined there. Determination is all about your mindset. And if you have the proper mindset and the belief, then you will make sure that they have all their questions answered. And so we have something called the tripod of belief. And the tripod of belief has to do with belief in the industry, belief in the company, and sometimes one of the most difficult things is to believe in yourself. And, you know, once you have the belief in all of these 3 categories, in the industry, in the company, and in yourself, then what we like to say is you're unmessable with. And there's nothing that anybody can do to knock you off the tripod, because you have that mindset and the belief. And so it's very important to learn how to properly answer objections. And we're going to be going through a bunch of very popular objections a little bit later on in our training today that are going to make sure that you have the belief in the industry, the company, and yourself in order to be able to answer questions with confidence. And, you know, something that we like to say is SW, 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 and that is some will, some won't, so what, someone's waiting. And so even if you've done everything that you could to be able to answer this person's objections and to be able to make them feel comfortable, sometimes they still won't join, and that's still okay. And it's okay because timing is everything. And, you know, sometimes I've showed this opportunity to somebody and it wasn't the right time for them, and 3 years later, because I kept following up with them, they ended up getting started with the company. So, you know, it's, you know, don't take it personally if somebody doesn't get started. Don't think you did something wrong. Don't blame yourself. Don't blame the other person. Just understand that, you know, your only job is to do your best and to keep getting better and to keep learning. And some will and some won't. And those that won't, so what? Someone's waiting.
Exactly. You know what? I remember when our top income earner, he first did this training, was amazing. The tripod of success here. One of the things he always says is, if even one of the legs of this tripod are a little bit weak, you know what, your entire mindset can collapse. And the best way when it comes to regards to the industry, to have that belief in the industry, and for the company at the same time, is doing a little bit of homework. You know, we even talk about in the tour itself, the industry of direct sales, and of course with a company with all the third-party accolades. Even for ourselves, we always see documentation beats conversation. You have all the documentation in the world talking about what an incredible company this is. You have places like businessforhome.org that show you what a beautiful industry this is, that's created more millionaires than every other. And of course, like you mentioned, Lior, sometimes one of the toughest ones, but again, one of the most important, is that belief in yourself. And folks, you know what? You always have the permission to mess up a couple times. You always have the permission to fail. And you have that because the key is to do it and keep trying to get yourself better. So again, one of the biggest ways to have that, determination, and mostly in yourself, is to do it. Of course, you're going to mess up a couple times, but you know what? You're going to have some great times at the same time. So just doing it yourself, the more you see it, the more you do it, the more it becomes natural, and eventually some will, some won't, so what next, as our top income earner says.
You're absolutely right, Sean. There's a lot of research that somebody can do in order to strengthen their belief in the industry, the company, and themselves. And attending the company's weekly trainings on Tuesday night at 9:15 will strengthen your belief. Attending the Sunday night webinars just like this one, week in and week out, every single week, is going to strengthen your belief. Attending all of the boot camps, the live boot camps, the online boot camps, regardless where you are in the world, will build your belief. Reading industry magazines like the Networking Times magazine. So there's a lot of ways you can strengthen your belief, and if you do that, if you take the time to become a professional networker, because there's a difference between a networker and a professional networker. And a professional networker, Sean, I'm hearing a little bit of an echo there. Oh, there we go. It went away. Oh, no, the echo's back a little bit. I don't know, maybe we can mute each other when the other one is speaking. That might actually work out. Yeah, that's better right there. And so if you do that research, your belief is going to be at a whole other level, and that's gonna really have a lot of impact on your success when answering people's questions. So let's move on to the 3 F's. So we've done the 3 D's. We've done the 3 E's. Now there's the 3 F's. And with regards to the 3 F's, this is something called feel, felt, and found. And I know that I use this all the time. I know that I actually learned this from the CEO and founder of the company, Mr. Ramin Mesgarlu, who taught me this from his 25 years of experience. And this is a great way to be able to relate to your prospect after the tour. Because sometimes when you're sitting with a prospect, they're seeing you as the professional. They see you as the expert. They see you as somebody who's making a lot of money, or somebody who's been with the company for a while, and they might be a little intimidated. And so when you use the feel, felt, found method, you actually bring yourself down to their level, and so that they can feel like they can relate to you. And that's very powerful when you're sitting with somebody after a tour. And so the way that feel, felt, found works is, for example, if somebody has an objection, you can say, I know exactly how you feel because I felt the same way when I first saw this opportunity or when I first got started. And what I found was, and then let them know what you found. And so once you do that, it brings you both to the same level. And now you're not somebody who they feel might be trying to sell them something. Now you're somebody who's trying to help them. And that's really the feeling that you want to give people, because at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want to help as many people as we can to be financially free, and we want to help as many people as we can to have the time freedom to be able to enjoy their lives. And so the more comfortable we can make them feel, and the more we can help them to understand that we're not sitting across the table from them, we're actually sitting on the same side of the table as they are, trying to figure out how we can help them, the more powerful it's going to be. Now, if you can't relate to them on what they're speaking about, then don't try to make it up. Don't let them know you know how they feel if you really don't know how they feel, because you've never felt that way. But if you know somebody who has felt that way, then you could say that. So, for example, you could say, well, you know, I can't relate to you because I didn't feel that way, but one of my business partners, for example, Sherry Zhao, she would know exactly how you feel because she felt the same way because of, and what she found was, and so that's why it's important for you to take out your My5 support form, and this is the support form that you received when you got started in the business. This is the support form that has the 5 business partners on it with their names, phone numbers, and email addresses who you can contact at any time for anything. That's why when somebody gets started, I recommend that you call your My5 and find out their stories. Find out why they got started in the business. Find out how they've been doing in the business so that you can share their stories while you're attempting to handle people's objections, and then you can use it using the feel, felt, sound method. And I know, Sean, you do this as well, so do you want to share a little bit about your knowledge on this?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I'm very blessed that I have, you know, access to our #1 income earner pretty much every tour that I go to, whether it's here in Ottawa or whether it's the tours in Montreal. And you know what? The 3 F's here, they're very key, and Reza uses them to a T because I always do a lot of edification of my enroller here. You know, talk about $1 million in 27 months, top income earner, and what I find is, you know, with a lot of people, it becomes a little bit intimidating at the same time here. So at the same point where they're ready to listen to everything Reza has to say, you know what, he always uses the 3 F's that, you know, I felt the same way when I got started, and so it kind of brings them down the same level. So instead of, you know, you're looking up to this, you know, massive person here who's, instead it turns out being that this is somebody who's going to help me every step of the way. They've already gone through the same process of me sitting down here, you know, having these questions in my head when I first saw the tour, and so it brings everybody to the same playing field, and that's when everybody can start helping each other. And not only that, you know what, this specific training, folks, tonight, not only for your business, you'll take these points tonight, whether it's the 3 Ds, the 3 Es, or the 3 Fs especially, and you'll see it'll help you in any type of negotiating process at the same time here. Handling these objections, it just brings each and every person to the same playing field so everyone's at that equal level.
Absolutely. So what do you say, Sean? Let's go into some common objections so that people can see some different ways that you could actually handle people's objections. Now, there is no right way to answer an objection. There is no one way to answer an objection. There's many different ways you can answer a certain objection, and again, it all depends on who you're sitting with, it all depends on what they would relate to, and it all depends on what type of objection they actually have. So what we're going to be sharing with you is not the only way to handle an objection. It's just a few ways to give you some ideas of how you can answer some people's objections. So a very common objection is the first objection, which is, I don't have time. I'm pretty sure you've heard that one before, Sean, because I have. And so some things that you could say when somebody says, I don't have time is, well, I recently started this new business. Come out to take a look and give me your opinion, okay? So that's you know, one thing that you could say. And you know, if they say, you know, I don't have time, well, spending time to make yourself rich is better than spending time to make someone else rich. Because people spend 40 hours a week for the next 40 years of their lives. They spend that time making their boss rich or the owner of their company rich. Why wouldn't they spend time to put some of that money into their pocket? So those are just a few things that you could say with regards to I don't have time. Now, once you say that, you can also ask them, how much time do you think you need to spend on building the business? And so sometimes people might think, well, I work a full-time job, and so I don't have time to do a business. But they may not realize that they may only need 10 hours a week. They may only need 5 hours a week. They may only need 15 hours a week. And if they knew that they would only need 10 or 15 hours a week part-time outside of their full-time job to do it, they might, well, then I'm definitely interested, right? So again, it depends on how you handle them, and it depends on the questions that you ask them to try and get some more information out of them to figure out what exactly is on their mind and to try and clear up some confusion that they may have. Now, a lot of people watch TV. So the question is, well, how much time do you watch TV? You know, if you spend 5, 10, I think the last time I heard was people spend something like, I don't know, 30 hours a week watching TV. I don't know where people have 30 hours a week to watch TV, but I mean, if somebody's spending that kind of time to watch TV, they could easily spend half of that time or even all of that time on building their business, and then they can watch TV 24 hours a day if they wanted to once their business gets going. So, you know, try to figure out what are people spending their time on already, and how can they divert some of that time to this business so that they can achieve what they want in life. And, you know, another thing you can say is, well, I've never met a rich person who was just bored. You know, wealthy people and rich people, they're not sitting around doing nothing. They're very busy, but they make time for income-generating activities because they understand that if they make time for those income-generating activities, they're going to have the time and money to be able to do what they love to do. So what about you, Sean? What do you say about I don't have time?
Well, you know what? As soon as I see these objections, I don't know if I'm like the rest of you folks, I start giggling all the time because there's these common objections you hear day in and day out. But of course, now you have the answers to them, right? You know what? For people I've heard this one, I don't have time. Well, they tend to say that they're too busy, and you know, well, we'll ask them, well, if you want to be busy for the rest of your life, then you want to keep doing what you're doing. But again, spending time to make yourself rich is better than spending time to make someone else rich. And like you mentioned, Leo, this is one of those objections where you may have to ask a couple questions to really get at the root of the objection here. Some folks think that, you know what, they have their full-time job and they're going to have to spend another 40 to 50 hours a week doing this business. So when you give folks an idea, you know, 5 to 10 hours a week, which is a part-time business they can have running here, you know what, they're absolutely blown away. So this one that I don't have time, there's a lot of different examples you can give to folks at the same time. From different testimonials, you hear people who had a full-time job, 2 full-time jobs, or no job that were doing this business here. So again, you know, great to introduce them to those folks as well, so they can kind of tell them they know how they feel, and you know, and show them what they found out at the same time.
Great points, Sean. And one more thing you could actually do if somebody says you don't have time is just give them an application form right there and then. And if they say, what's this? You can say, well, you just told me you don't have time, so you have to do this business because this business is going to give you more time. So fill out the application, get started, and let's start helping you have more time in your life because you just told me you don't have time, okay? So that's a fun way, and a way that's pretty successful is just hand them an application, slide it right over to them, and say, you just told me why you need this business because you don't have time and you need it. Well, that's what this business is going to do for you. So let's move on to the next objection there, Sean. The next objection you might get is another one of my favorites, which is this a pyramid scheme or a scam? And, you know, how you respond to this is very important because, you know, when somebody says, is this a pyramid scheme or a scam, you know, the last thing you want to do, and what you definitely don't want to do, is you don't want to try to explain to them what the definition of a pyramid scheme or a scam is. So you don't want to say, well, you know, according to Wikipedia or according to Webster's Dictionary or according to Google, well, you don't want to say that because you shouldn't be justifying somebody basically saying that you're involved in something illegal, because that's basically what somebody is saying when they say, you know, is this a pyramid scheme or a scam? That's like somebody saying, are you a thief? And you saying, well, according to Google or according to Wikipedia, I'm not a thief because of da-da-da-da-da, right? So you wouldn't do that if somebody called you a thief. So you shouldn't do that if somebody says, are you part of a pyramid scheme? So one thing that you could say is, you know, first have a confused look on your face because obviously they've just, you know, kind of said something negative about you. So have a confused look on your face and say, well, what's that? You know, and what do you mean? You know, what's a pyramid scheme? Because really, they may not even know what they've just asked you. And, you know, 95% of the time, when somebody says, is this a pyramid or is this a pyramid scheme, they have no idea what they just asked you. And so by asking them, what do you mean by that, or what is a pyramid, it actually makes them look a little bit silly for even asking you that question. So kind of throw it back to them and see what they mean by that, so that you can really understand where are they coming from. You can also say, well, this is a Canadian designer fashion house with exposure on, and then you can show them the mag pack. And that's why it's important to go to the GWT promo site in your back office and to purchase third-party credibility tools like the catalog, like the mag pack. The mag pack and the Glamo pack has articles in the Canadian Jewelers Association magazine where we were featured 3 times. It has articles in the Viva International magazine where we were given the award for 2011 Luxury Designer of the Year. It has on our website, you can see videos of us on the View TV show, which was broadcasted live all over the world. And so we have so many third-party credibility tools. And what I love is when I use these tools, people feel very silly for asking you a question like that. Oh, you guys were featured on the American Business Journal. Oh, I can't believe I thought you guys were a pyramid scheme, or whatever it is, right? Now, a pyramid scheme is different from a legal pyramid or a pyramid structure. Every company in the world and every organization in the world has a pyramid structure. They have a CEO, and then vice presidents, and then managers, and then employees. And so when you look at that on a piece of paper, when you draw it out, what does it look like? It looks like a pyramid. And so pyramid structures are normal in many types of businesses around the world, but a pyramid scheme is actually illegal. And the biggest difference between a pyramid structure and a pyramid scheme is that in a pyramid scheme, there's no products or services being sold, and you're just taking money from people and paying other people from money that you've collected from other people, which is illegal. So, obviously you don't need to explain that to somebody, but just so that you understand that, the difference between a pyramid structure and a pyramid scheme and some of the ways to handle that. I know that you always find this one great to handle, Sean.
You know what? To be quite frank with you, Lior, I don't actually remember the last time I've had this objection here. People that come to see our products, they come and see our tour. Chances are they've already seen the Glamo pack at the same time. I could maybe a couple of years ago, I remember when we first got started, some people would ask this now, but at the end of the day, folks, your reaction is what's going to either end this objection quickly or lengthen it to a long conversation. And Lior, like you mentioned, having a confused look, having a stern look, asking them what's that. In my case, same idea of what's that, but documentation beats conversation every time. And if they come to the tour with the Glamo pack, you'll never get this objection. In fact, I'm going to put this one for myself as an uncommon objection at this time. But you know what? Same idea here. We've been featured in so many different third parties at this point. Some of our distributors have been featured on the world stage when it comes to third-party credibility. We're in our 9th year of operations now. It's just incredible what's happening here.
That's true. That's very true, Sean. I actually can't remember the last time I got this objection, but sometimes this objection comes up when you try to explain what the business is yourself, and that's why we recommend to use tools like the lookbooks, like the online video tour, to do the talking of the business for you, so that you don't try to explain it to somebody, and then because of how you try to explain it, they might think that it's something that it's not. So again, not a very common objection, but something important to understand how to handle it just in case it ever comes up. Now, moving on to the next one. I don't know how to sell. I'm not in the selling business, which I find is funny because people sell every day. When you ask somebody on a date, what are you doing? You're selling yourself, right? When you go to a job interview, what are you doing? You're selling yourself. When you were a young kid and you wanted something from your parents, what did you do? You tried to sell how much you really want it, right? And how much you really need it, right? So you've learned your whole life how to sell, and so you already understand how to sell. Now, aside from that, we're not even in the selling business, okay? We are in a business of sharing about products and about sharing about the business. So when you go to a restaurant, and it's a good restaurant, what do you do with the people you know? You share. Hey, I just went to this great restaurant. Go and check it out. When you go to a good movie, hey, I just went to this great movie. Go and check it out. You know, if you share about things in your life anyway, and so so change the context of how you do this business from selling to sharing, because over the last 5 years, I haven't sold any products, and I haven't sold the business to anybody. All I've done is I've shared the products, I've shared the business, and I've shared with them, most importantly, a $200 gift certificate. And that's all that we do. So when somebody has an objection of, well, you know, I don't want to sell, well, we don't sell. All we do is we share with people a $200 gift certificate, and we ask them for their opinion about it. And that's it. There's no selling involved in this business. How about you, Sean? How do you deal with that?
You know what, almost the same idea. I talk a lot about how, you know, if they don't know how to sell or they're not in the selling business, we talk about, you know, sharing. Me, I'm a big movie buff, so every time I go to a movie, you know, I'll constantly share. I'm basically selling tickets for all these big studios out there, you know, all these great movies that I go to see. But at the same time, you know, sometimes I'll put in a little question, would you like to learn how to sell? You know, and sometimes you have a yes, sometimes you have a no. Either way, you can go back to just the sharing portion here. But at the same time, I always mention, you know what, you don't need to be in sales, you just need to share the product and the business with people. The great news is we work with such a tight-knit team structure here that we're always going on people's great points here, never the weaknesses. So you may not know how to sell, but you know you might know some people who know how to sell. The team, we have some sellers in there at the same time here, so either way it becomes a great tight-knit team.
Absolutely. Great points there. Now moving on, I don't know enough people. So, you know, one thing you could ask them is, so do you know 2 people who might be interested in time and financial freedom? Because remember, in this business, all you need to do in order to qualify to start making residual income is 2 people. And sometimes what I see people do is, well, another question you could actually ask them is, can you think of anybody in your life who you think might be interested in this opportunity? And sometimes what I hear people say is, well, John would be interested, Susie, I don't know, Fred, I don't think so, Humphrey, no. And so I ask them, you know, how come Humphrey doesn't deserve time and financial freedom? You know, how come Susie doesn't deserve it? How come only Bob deserves it? How come you're prejudging people, right? So again, sometimes people say they don't know people because they fall into the trap of prejudging and playing God or the universe and trying to figure out who's going to be interested and who's not. But again, unless your name is God or the universe, you don't know who's going to be interested, and so you need to be able to talk to everybody, and that's something that you need to explain to people is that you don't know who's going to be interested in this opportunity, and you shouldn't take time and financial freedom away from people just because you don't know if they're going to be interested or not. So again, another question you could ask them is, do you know anybody who complains about their job or not having enough time and money? And obviously they do, because 99% of the world complains about not having enough time or money or not enjoying what they do. And so just by asking them questions like this, they'll actually start to see for themselves that they do know enough people. And they do know people who would be interested in this. And even if they, you know, don't know or they don't think that they know, well, they can meet people, because everywhere they go, there's people who need more time and money, like the supermarket, like gas stations, like grocery stores. I know that everywhere I go, you know, I approach everybody because I already know that 99% of the world doesn't like their job, needs more time and more money. I already know that. So because I know that people are looking for a way out. And because I know that, I don't have a problem to approach them. And that's, again, something that you can give people is ideas of people that they can start to approach.
You got it, again, right on the point there, Lior. You know, this is another one of those objections where you might have to ask a couple questions to actually get down to the root here. Some folks, they might come with the impression that they need to show this tool to hundreds upon hundreds of people. And, you know, showing the power of the two and asking, do you know two people who have the interest in time and financial freedom, you know, can get rid of that objection right away. We've all heard the stats before. Studies are done that the average person here in North America over the age of 18 knows about 2,000 people on first name basis over here. So I know some people, they like to throw that statistic out at the same time. I know another one of our favorites is, you know, when we ask, do you know anyone who complains about not having enough time or money, or, you know, who complains about their job? Well, kind of related to how many, you know, phone numbers you have in your phone or how many friends you have on Facebook. You know, do any one of those people ever complaining about not having enough time or money? And, you know, it really gets over this I don't know enough people objection.
That's a great point, Sean, because many people have hundreds and maybe thousands of people on Facebook. So those are great people in order to approach for this business. Now, moving on, another common objection is, I don't think this business is for me. And one of my favorite responses to that is from our #1 top earner, Reza Mezgarlu, who says, so what exactly is not for you? Is it the free time or the big money? You know, because, again, that's what this business is going to do for you. It's going to give you more free time, and it's going to allow you to make a lot of money. So which one of those two things is not for you? Or you could just ask them, so why do you think this business is not for you? And sometimes when you say, why is this not for you, it might be because they don't really understand how they would do the business. They don't understand how simple the business is. And so you might just need to explain to them how easy it is to share with people about the company and about the products, because they might not understand that. Or what part of this business don't you like? You know, then you can kind of make them feel more comfortable, or what I like to say is to correct any incorrect assumptions that they might have made. They might think that they need to harass people. They might think that they need to be a used car salesman because they once went to a used car lot and they didn't like how the used car salesman. You don't know, right? They might be thinking a bunch of different things. And so you just want to ask them questions to figure out what's going on in their mind so that you can correct those things. And, you know, one thing that you can tell them is that with this business, there's a very small investment, there's a very small risk, and actually there's no risk because you get way more value than you're actually investing with a potentially great return, okay? So, again, a lot of different questions to ask people, a lot of different ways you can approach it, and at the end of the day, just have them understand that, you know, this business is going to give them the lifestyle that they want, and at the end of the day, that's what's really important here. Sean?
You know what, Leo, this is I like to call this one the can of worms, the sum of all fears objection here. I see a lot of times, you know, people, they come out by saying, I don't think this business is for me. And what happens is, well, when you ask them, well, what part of this business you don't like, or why don't you think so? And next thing you know, they're talking about, well, I don't know enough people, I don't have any sales experience, I don't have enough time. So I like to call it the can of worms objection here. Now, the key is obviously, when you go through this one, you want to isolate every objection one at a time. You know, you want to tackle each objection one at a time here. When it comes to the business not for me, you know, I love what Reza says, what part is it, the big money or the free time? And again, you want to come down to the business, small investment, but of course potentially great return. And I know Rene Liao, our #2 millionaire, he did a great training on tax advantages with this business. So you can show them a little bit too. You know, this business is for absolutely everybody, especially if you pay taxes, which I know the vast majority of us do. You know what, this is where you want to tackle this one here. And again, one at a time, you know, gentle persistence every step of the way here with a big smile, but show them that there's a lot of people that felt the same way you did, including myself, that didn't think this business was for me. But you know what, let them know that's not a good enough answer for them to have success down the road.
Great points there, Sean. Moving on. I don't know if this business will work. I love that one because, you know, obviously there's a lot of people who are generating some great incomes with this opportunity, and so obviously it is working. You know, what they might mean is, you know, I don't know if this business is going to work for me. Again, it might just be a fear. And so one thing you can say to them is, well, there's really only one way to find out. Because again, I don't know how to fly a plane, but I'm pretty sure that if I took lessons, I could figure it out, right? And so with this business, it's not any different. You could get started, have no clue at all how to do this type of a business, just like myself. This is my first network marketing company that I've ever been in. I have no experience in any other company other than this, but when I got started, I tapped into the incredible amount of training and resources that the company has to be able to train myself on how to make this business work. So I didn't expect to know how to make it work right from the bat, but I did understand that it would take me some time to learn, just like it takes you to learn anything. If you want to ride a bike, you got to get on the bike and practice. If you want to learn how to play basketball, you got to practice. And so this business will work if you put in the work. And so because of that, you have to, one thing that's good is to explain to them some of the training that we have in the company. And so just to make them feel comfortable and let them know that we have a Tuesday night training, we have a Sunday night training, we have boot camps, we have an online back office with resource information, we have the forensic networker. So you don't need to know how to make this business work because you're going to learn very quickly. If you take the time to learn, you will very quickly understand all of the skills that you need in order to make this work for you, and then by practicing those skills, you'll be able to become a professional networker and build yourself a residual income that's going to give you the lifestyle that you want and need. You know, another thing you could say is exactly what Sean mentioned a little bit earlier, is worst case scenario, you're still going to save money on taxes. Now, do you know anybody who would like to save money on their taxes? Well, I don't know it. I don't know people who love to pay the government at the end of the year. I mean, I love getting a paycheck back at the end from the government, and you know, everybody in this company gets a paycheck back from the government at the end of the year, which is much better than paying the government. And you know, there's a great document that you know, number 2 top earner Renee Liao has, which you can actually go through with prospects after a tour that has them list all of their expenses, and it'll show them how much money they would be saving if they actually were part of GWT. And so when somebody sees that they just lost out $2,000 last year or $3,000 last year or every year or in some cases $7,000, I mean, imagine there's an application form in front of you from our company, and if you sign it, you're going to get back $7,000 at the end of the year, and if you don't sign it, you're not going to get back $7,000 at the end of the year. Obviously, the smart thing to do would be to sign it to get that money. And so really the business becomes free, because even with the highest package, if you're saving $7,000 just by being in this business, you can get a diamond package. And worst case scenario, you just made $4,000 profit and got $10,000 of free luxury designer products. So it's a win-win-win everywhere. And so again, something to explain to people is that worst case scenario, they're going to be saving a lot of money on taxes. And I know you talk about this a lot as well, Sean.
Well, yeah, you know what? This objection, will this business will work? I've heard it a couple times, and my first question is, well, do you mean if it'll work for you? You know, it's never wondering, well, does this business or this model, this plan actually work? You know, the documentation shows you every step of the way. It's usually coming from the prospect. They're wondering if this business will work for them. And again, at this point, you know, you use your 3 Fs, reassure them of the amount of training and the support that you have just in the room with you in the tour there, reassure them of the support they're going to get. And of course, you know, that you'll be holding their hand to success every step of the way. This one truly is, they're asking, will the business work? But they're truly wondering if it's going to work for them.
Excellent points there, Sean. Now, the next one, I've actually never received this one. I don't know about you, Sean, but I've never had anybody say to me they don't have money. Obviously, I'm joking, because that is a common objection that some people have. I have no money. And, you know, many times it's never about the money, okay? Because, you know, whenever somebody says to me, I have no money, all I do is I start thinking about all of the people that I've spoken to in the last 5 years who have actually had less money than this person, who actually found the money to get started. So if there's people who have less money than you, who are finding the money, then it's not the money. Okay, it might just be a creativity problem in terms of you being creative to go and find the money. It might just be a motivation problem. You might just not be motivated to go and go get the money. Because I've had people who have seen this and gotten a part-time job just to get the money to get started in this business so that they would never have to worry about money again. So again, it's not about the money. So one thing you could say to them is, you know, you've spent $499 or $3,099 on things that have never paid you. So why not use that same money and invest it into a business, okay? So, you know, people love designer brand names, and that's one of the beautiful things about our business is we're in the designer brand industry, and people spend money like this on designer products all the time. So I see all the time people who practically look like they're homeless, but they're walking around with a Gucci bag. And why? Because they love designer products, and they spend most of their paychecks on designer products. So how about this? How about we start helping people to not spend money on Gucci, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, that's not going to give them any money back in their pocket, and help them to start buying designer products that are actually going to start to put money in their pocket, so they not only are now walking around with a designer handbag, they're actually walking around with a designer handbag with money in their pocket as opposed to just a handbag. So again, explain to people that the same money that they're spending on designer brands, they can still spend it on designer brands, but they can make money at the same time as well. And, you know, sometimes people think that they have to start as a diamond right away. Well, you know, I want to start as a diamond, but I don't have $3,000, so I can't start right now. Well, how about you start at the $499, and then you can always upgrade to the diamond package anytime you want. So it's not about how you start, it's always about how you finish. And because we have no ranks and levels in this company, because you can upgrade to the top of the compensation plan from day one or anytime you want, start at the $499, get yourself positioned, and then upgrade anytime you want. And so a question you could ask them is, you know, did the designer products you bought ever pay you back? And again, that'll have them thinking about all the money they spend on designer products that don't put money back in their pocket. Now, we have some more ways to get around I have no money, but anything you want to add to these points, Sean?
Well, you know what, Lior, like you mentioned earlier for the no free time, if someone tells me I have no money, then you know what, it's application straight in their hand. Because if you're going through life at this point and you don't have $499 to spend on, you know, a business that can lead you to prosperity, and you don't even have an extra $499 anywhere, then trust me, you definitely need this business, right? And you can share the points along with them at the same time here. And again, one of the great things you mentioned, Lior, is when people see the tool, they want to get started with Diamond right away. You can take them through the launch pad to get them started right away, any other package so they can move up later on down the road. And of course, again, you can tie back into those tax savings. But at this point, you know, it's kind of like a free time thing. If you don't have an extra $499, then trust me, this is a business that you definitely need. And you can go through borrowing the money, remortgage the house, new credit cards, sell something, because we got to change the situation around for you.
That's exactly the right point, Sean, because if you can't afford $499, then whatever you've been doing for the past 5, 10, 15, or 50 years obviously isn't working for you. So it's probably time you make a change. And worst case scenario, you're going to save money on taxes. So spend $499 and get back, you know, anywhere between $3,000 and $9,000 on your taxes. That's a pretty good investment of $499 plus whatever profits you make from the business. You know, and another thing you could say is, you know, for me, when the day comes and I look back on my life, you know, I won't even remember spending the $499 or the $3,099. What would matter to me is whether I did all that I could to leave a legacy behind, to have known that I tried and gave it my best in life and did what I could for my family or for myself, okay? So, you know, have them realize that the money that they're spending is not an expense. They're not just throwing away $3,000. They're actually putting that $3,000 into something that's going to give them a better life. So what better use of that money could they possibly have? So those are just some ways that, again, you can go through the I have no money objection. But remember, whenever somebody says to you, I have no money, the first thing you need to say to yourself is, it's not about the money, and I got to figure out what it really is. Because, again, maybe they don't understand how the business works. Maybe they think it's too hard, but they don't want to tell you that. So an easy way to get around it is to just say, well, I don't have any money. And so you can just explain to them how simple it is to build this business. So moving on to the next one is, I need time to think about it. And another one of my favorite common objections, I need time to think about it. So a great question to ask is, so just so I get a clear picture, what specifically is holding you back, or what do you need to think about, or what questions do you have? Okay, try to get it all out of them again so that you can answer it for them, so that they don't have to go home and do the research themselves if they can just get that from you. You can also ask them, well, what do you have to lose? Because again, you're getting way more products than you're paying for. You're getting tax savings. You're getting a lot of value. It's risk-free. So what is there to really think about? There really is nothing to think about. And you could say to them that the business is constantly moving forward and constantly advancing, and you don't want to miss out on anything that's going to be happening. Also, on the next slide, we can see that you can give them some tips. So you can tell them about, leveraging tax benefits of joining now. So if you join now, just on the drive home, because you're going to be talking about this to the people in your house, just on the drive home, you can already start to write off your gas mileage, okay? And the beautiful thing about having a home-based business in North America is that for every $2 you spend on gas, you actually save $1. So you could actually save 50% of the gas that it's going to take you just to go home from this meeting, just because of the tax advantages. So you want to mention that to people, because if they wait a month, they just lost a month's worth of tax savings. So the longer they wait, the more money they lose, and you can already explain to them how much money they've already lost by not having a home-based business through all of these years that they've been working, and how much they're going to lose by not getting started with the positioning and with the ability to be able to benefit from having the spillover of some of the people above them being putting some luxury consultants under them, which is going to allow them to make more money. And you could also share stories of people who have missed out on a lot of earnings just because they waited, okay? So, for example, you can share Sherry's story, how she waited for 10 days to get started, and because she waited for 10 days to get started and other people got started before her, she ended up missing out on thousands and thousands of dollars of residual income. Now, Sherry's not crying because she's obviously one of our top earners today, and so she eventually got started and was able to build herself a very nice residual income. There's also Reza's story and a lot of other people's story that you can share, and we're highly paid storytellers, so the more stories that you share during objections, the more real and the more related people can get to some of the people in the company, and the more effective it's going to be. So anything else you want to add to that, Sean?
You know what, just Leo, this I need time to think about it. It's one of those that's supposed to slow everything down, but you know what, when used effectively, when you overcome this objection, you'll actually create a big sense of urgency in that prospect here, whether it's the team building aspect of it or it's the tax benefits of it. Giving the stories is very key here. You have tons of different stories, whether it's people who got massive tax returns, or just from positioning, they got massive teams built for them and they finally got to work when they were ready. But this is one of those key objections. If you handle it correctly, instead of slowing everything down, you'll create a massive sense of urgency within that prospect.
Very good points there, Sean. The next one is a funny one. It's, I don't like or wear jewelry. It's a business for females. I hear that one once in a while. And, the funny thing is, when I got started, I didn't like jewelry either. But I didn't look at this as, well, I have to love jewelry, because if I don't love jewelry, I can't do this business. I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as, the whole world, 80% of the world wears jewelry and designer products, and the other 20% of the world buys it for the 80%, so that's a good business to want to be in. So don't, have them explain to them that they shouldn't be looking at it from a consumer point of view. They should be looking at it from a business owner point of view, because a business owner doesn't care if they like the product that their company cares about is, Are the masses buying it? Is there a large market? And a great example is selling underwear. You know, I wouldn't get excited about having an underwear business or selling underwear, but everybody wears underwear. So is it a good business to have? Absolutely, because the world wears it and you can make a lot of sales. So you don't have to be excited about underwear to understand that the underwear business is a very profitable business and can make you a lot of money. Just like you don't have to be excited about jewelry or designer products in order to understand that, you know, Gucci makes, you know, $6 billion a year. Louis Vuitton makes $9 billion a year. You know, Ferry, our company, is the fastest growing designer fashion house in the world. Why is that? Because a lot of people love it and wear it, and as a business owner, we get to profit from that, and that's the most important thing. So would you rather have a dream job, or would you rather have your dreams? Because sometimes your dream job doesn't pay very well, but having your dreams means having a business that provides products that the majority of the world wears. Sean?
You know what, again, same idea here. I always use the McDonald's example. You know, the person who owns 3 or 4 McDonald's locations isn't eating Big Macs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and just carries Big Macs with him wherever he goes. You know, it's all about the business over here. The owner of Louis Vuitton, he's one of the richest people in the world right now. He is a man, and the only thing he wears is a watch from what I understand here. So at the same idea, you know what, even if he doesn't like or wear jewelry, guess what? He's a billion-dollar man because he understands what this business is all about. And again, I love what you said, their dream job versus the dream.
Now, the next one is, I need to discuss this with my partner and spouse. And, you know, sometimes I hear this, especially if they don't come with their partner or spouse. So one thing I would first of all recommend to everybody on this call is, when you're speaking to a prospect, find out if they have a partner or a spouse and have them bring their partner or spouse so that you can avoid this objection after the tour, okay? So 2 people coming out will have you be much more effective and successful than just one. But if you do get this objection, what you want to say to them is, well, you're not the best person to explain the business to your spouse and partner because you've just heard about this for the first time, and it's almost impossible for you to be able to explain it to somebody as well as we just did, okay? So if they absolutely have to speak to their spouse about it, sometimes I have them get on the phone right there and then, call their spouse or partner, put their spouse or partner on the phone with me, and then I speak to their spouse and partner and have them watch the online video right from home. And then after they watch the video, I get on the phone with them, and then I get them both started right there and then. So that's one thing you could do. But again, in terms of handling that objection, one thing you could say to them is, well, would you do the business even if your spouse said no? And, you know, usually what they say is, yes, you know, I see the value of the business and I see what it can do for me. And that kind of has them realize, you know, well, maybe I don't need the permission of my spouse. But, you know, I understand that sometimes it's not so much for permission, it's just for, you know, just for the respect factor of letting your partner know about it. So, you know, one thing I tell them is I prepare them for how to speak to their spouse. And so, you know, John, when you go home, you know, don't say, you know, honey, I'm going to do this business. Is that okay with you? You know, don't say that. Say to them, you know, honey, this is a business that I see value in and that I really want to do, and I just want to let you know what I'm doing, okay, just so that you know what I'm going to be doing, okay? That's a much better way to approach it with your spouse or partner. Any advice there, Sean?
No, you know what, it's pretty much exactly what you just said there, Lior. I've seen sometimes where, you know, we have some of our members invite some of their friends and family over, and they'll mention, you know, well, I got to discuss it with my wife or my partner, spouse. And so what will happen is they'll see, we'll sometimes poke a little bit of fun about them, like, you know, oh, she wears the pants or he wears the pants, the boss. You want to kind of stay away from that route and just cover what Lior said right there. Again, it's a very professional way to go about it. And, of course, asking that, just a reminder, would you do the business, even if your spouse said no, you know, it instills that within their mind.
Excellent. So the last slide here, again, is all about delivery. And it's all about posture, and it's all about your confidence and your enthusiasm. Even if you don't have the answer, if you're confident, that you don't have the answer. If it's okay with you that you don't have the answer, it'll be okay with them that you don't have the answer. You know, John, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to get you the answer right away. What other questions do you have that I can answer for you? Okay, so again, it's all about confidence, and it's all about being enthusiastic about the opportunity. So that's actually our training for today. I'm pretty sure you've got a lot of tips and tricks and some belief-building advice here today on the call with Sean and myself. And what we want to do right now is we want to open up the line. So we want to hear from you any questions that you have, or if there's an objection that you would like us to answer for you that you didn't hear us answer today on the call, write it into the question box in the GoToWebinar control panel, or raise your hand and we will unmute you, and you can ask your objection on this call, or you can ask your question on this call, because we want to make sure that everybody's clear. We want to make sure that everybody has their questions answered. We want to leave no objection unanswered and no stone unturned. And so if you have a comment about our training, if you have a question about our training, or if you have any objections that you would like us to be able to handle, type it into the question box and GoToWebinar, or raise your hand, and we'll unmute you, and we'll be more than happy to answer that question or objection for you. So Sean or Kevin, do you see any questions coming in?
It looks like we got some comments coming in here. We're going to see if there's any questions. But you know what, while we're waiting for the questions to come in, I'm just going to, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, if you can effectively handle, you know, an answer or come up with a solution to every one of those objections, one of the beautiful parts is, you know, you're addressing that person's concerns, and if you handle each objection one by one, this is the reason why we say, you know, shoot the questions at us, shoot the objections at us that, you know, we might not have covered tonight, because if you can address each and every one of their concerns, come up with a solution, come up with an answer, that person will almost always join you, because, you know, in their mind, you've handled every objection in their mind, and there's no other option other than to join you. You know, you take the objections head on, you don't avoid them, and of course, the delivery here, like Lior mentioned, it's all about the confidence. People, you know what, they come to our tours, they love everything they see. They love the products, they love the tour, they love the pay plan, and one of the biggest things that helps them make their decision is really the decisions based on you. They're looking for strength, they're looking for confidence, enthusiasm, and of course, they want to see also that you're having fun at the same time. And I know for myself, one of the best ways I learned this was through witnessing it, through some of the, you know, the great names we have in our company here, and of course from then on, practicing it at the same time. So I'll pass it over to Kevin. Doesn't seem like we have any questions at this point. I think we did a pretty good job there, Lior, if I can toot our own horn for us. So I guess maybe we'll get Kevin to read some of the comments coming in here.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you, Lior. That was an awesome training. I took lots of notes. Some of those objections, I kept laughing because I keep hearing them day in and day out, and it's always the same thing. And luckily enough, I'm always working close to Sean, saying I'm always working close to Reza, and I just see Reza taking those objections head on. It's the answers are just coming out of his mouth like he knows them all. Basically, here I want to go through some of the objections and questions that we have. First of all, let me see some of the comments. That was a very powerful and informative training. Well done, the best. Incredible training by Sean again. One of the objections that I've seen here, I'm not a computer tech, and I'm just not into computers. Would that be some kind of objections that either Sean or Lior would have encountered anytime soon?
Well, I get that maybe once a year. And, you know, I don't really know who doesn't know how to use a computer these days, but, you know, if somebody doesn't know how to use a computer, and we do have people who don't already in the business making money, you know, we do have lookbooks, we do have catalogs, and, you know, as a business owner, again, it's okay that you don't, because your customers will. And most people, they shop online. I know that, you know, 33% of everything sold online is jewelry and designer products, and so your prospects and your customers are online, and they can go online to buy the products. And usually they have a business. Usually they do have a be able to do this business. So again, it's not important what you have because the majority of the world does. And that's really what's important here. Sean, do you want to add anything?
I know for a fact tonight, Lior, you're having. Oh, you know, I was just going to say, I know for a fact you're having some computer troubles tonight. So you know what? Sometimes we're not the most computer savvy people in the world, but I know there's a lot of us, including myself. We're a little bit old school. I prefer my business face to face. I'm not too high tech when it comes to that, and I'll let the people know that right off the bat too. You know, you don't need a computer to do this business here. Especially, we'll work with you every step of the way. If you need a computer, we always have one here. We'll train you, teach you every step of the way how to use it at the same time.
Awesome talk. Thank you very much, Sean and Lior. That was a great answer to that questions. Just to go through some more comments, we have Reza Mizgarlu saying that was a very powerful and informative training. Well done by the best. Next we have Renee Liao saying incredible training for Sean. You guys just helped the entire GWT family in becoming masters at handling objections. Amazing, amazing training tonight. Way to go, guys. Then we have Annie Duperville saying, awesome, amazing duo. This training is key to our business. We have Junior Estoesta saying, thank you, Lior and Sean, for this amazing training, very informative, and it will definitely help me improve how to handle objections. I can't wait to apply and practice them. Thank you, guys. We have tons of comments coming in. I'm having a hard time keeping up with them. So if we don't have any more objections for tonight, I'm just going to go ahead with some announcements of the things that are coming up for GWT. We have, first of all, the Appreciation Barbecue, which is going to take place on August 17th. We also have the CDSC Retreat, which will take place on August 24th. We also have the Secret Day coming up in Toronto. That will be on September 14th. So if there's anything that Sean or Lior would like to add, I think we will call it a night. Thank you very much, everybody, for being on this call. I hope it helped you guys, and I hope you took lots of notes to build your business. Thank you very much. Have a great day.